Berlin. Chiponda, was the summit a success?
Well, some agreements, of course, were reached on increasing trade and reducing irregular migration to Europe. But the verdict on the success of the summit itself will really depend on whether both the European Union and the African Union deliver on their pledges. Now, the EU is promising to invest up to 150 billion euros on infrastructure projects in African countries by 2027 through the Global Gateway. Now, the Global Gateway was actually set up to compete with China's Belt and Road Initiative to help countries in the Global South improve their infrastructure. Now, for the EU, a lot of this is about getting access to critical raw materials from African countries, and that would be including raw materials like rare earths, copper, cobalt, and lithium.
In the larger context, how crucial is EU-Africa partnership?
Well, the EU is Africa's top trade partner. A third of African exports actually come to Europe. Now, in 2023, the trade in goods and services actually reached 467 billion euros, and that's according to EU data. Now, the EU is also the leading source of foreign direct investment to Africa. Now, Europe does have an interest in Africa's economic and political stability because of the impact of many crises on the continent being felt here in Europe, especially when it comes to irregular migration, which is a polarizing topic on the European continent. And that is why we heard the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen say that Europe's and Africa's prosperity are connected. And that is also because economic progress and political stability in Africa would, of course, help reduce the number of irregular migrants to Europe.
The summit is concluded, but what can we expect going forward?
A lot will be riding on whether the EU does deliver on its promises, and of course also what other countries like the US, China, Turkey, or even the Gulf states are doing on the African continent. Now, the EU is trying to emphasize that its projects are greener and it also protects human rights. But of course, from what we have seen, there's been a clear lack of a clear strategy for investing in Africa, and that has helped China especially make inroads on the continent. And in recent years, Brussels has of course been more focused on the war in Ukraine, which is right at its doorstep. And while that of course does impact security here in Europe, it is still important for the European Union not to lose sight of what is happening on the African continent, because of course the political and economic stability on that continent also have an impact on Europe.
Chiponda Chimbelu, thank you for joining us with those updates.